Hey everyone, Emily here. Today I want to show you how to turn dollar store garden lights into colorful solar ornaments that you can hang around your home. Let's get started. So for this project you're going to need some solar lights, just like these. You can get these at just about any dollar store. You're going to need colored LEDs, either plain or, if you want to get a little fancier, some color changing RGB LEDs. You're going to need solder and a soldering iron. And depending on how far you want to take this project, you're going to need some capacitors and some diodes. And you're going to need some ping pong balls. You can get these at the dollar store as well. Okay, so to get started, you're going to take one of your solar lights and you just twist and this whole bottom piece comes off. So you're not going to need this, so set this aside. And then let's get started on disassembling the light itself. Most of these are really simple to open up. They usually just have two small screws. So take those out and set those aside, but make sure that you don't lose them because you're going to need them again later. So once those screws are out, this bottom piece will pull out. And this is all there is to it. There's not much to these solar lights. You have a battery and you have a solar panel that's in here and you have a board. The first thing you should do is take the battery out so you don't short anything while you're working on it. Now generally these boards are held in by a single screw as well, so you're going to take that out and set that aside wherever you put your other screws. And then you can easily lift the board out of the plastic. And so what you see here is, let's get this a little bit closer. So here's your board. Get that to focus. So here's the board, and there's your LED. There's an inductor here. This one has a switch, but a lot of these lights don't. It depends on which store you go to. A lot of them just come on when it gets dark. And this is where all the magic happens. This is the YX8018 chip. And this chip does a couple of things. One thing it does is it turns the LED off when there's light shining on the solar panel. So that way your light isn't running during the day. The other thing it does is that it acts in conjunction with this inductor here as sort of a boost converter. The solar panel itself only generates about 1.5 volts, and these batteries are only good for probably 1.4 volts or so. There you go, 1.2 volts. And that's not enough to run most LEDs, especially white ones. So the YX8018 with this inductor, and they raise the voltage up to about 2.5 volts, which is plenty to run a white LED. And it will be plenty to run whatever colored LED that you happen to want to put into your light. So the next thing we're going to want to do here is take this white LED out. You're going to want to pay attention to the polarity. It's marked on some of these boards, but it's not marked on all of them. So pay attention to the polarity. It's pretty easy to get the LED out with a soldering iron. You just heat one lead and push the LED one direction, and then you heat the other lead and then push the LED the other direction again, and just sort of rock it back and forth until it comes out. If you have a solder sucker, that would make this quicker. Solder wick as well, but this works just fine. So now your LED is out. You can save that. It's a perfectly good white LED. So if you are a hoarder like me, you set it in a bin and save it for some project 5 years from now. You can save this heat shrink tubing so you can put it on the leads for the LED that you're going to put in there as a replacement. Now you can use just about any LED you want as long as it will run on about 2.5 volts. So I have a collection here. So let's go with a green one. And let me make sure this is a green one because this bin has gotten a little bit mixed up. Okay, that's definitely green. So all you're going to do is solder this new LED, your colored LED, in place of the white one. And I find that my helping hands are pretty useful for this, at least to get it started. So just put the leads from the new LED through the holes that the last LED came from. And just heat up those solder pads until it slides on there. Now, if you're lucky, the solder that was remaining on the pads when you took the white LED out will be enough to solder the new LED in there, but most of the time that's not the case, and you need to add a little bit extra solder. So go ahead and do that. If you did it right, then putting this back together with the battery should make your LED come on. Get this back together here. We're going to clip these leads so they're not quite so long. And then let's put the battery in. And let's see if we did it right. And we did. So there you go. The green LED is on. So to turn this into a solar ornament, we're going to need three things. A ping pong ball, a blade like an X-Acto knife, and a glue gun. Let's get the glue gun plugged in. And while that's warming up, we're going to carefully take our blade, hold the ping pong ball, and we're going to cut into it. And what you want to do here is cut a little slit and then go 90 degrees to that and cut another little slit. And what that lets you do is now you have a spot where you can poke your LED through. So you just sort of slip it on there, and the LED should poke through that hole. So now you take your glue gun and make a small bead of glue going in a ring around the cross, just like that. And then press the two halves together, and then hold the ping pong ball until the glue has set. It should only take a few seconds or so. And for the last step, we're going to need two things. One is this piece that I've designed to be 3D printed. You can get the file off of Thingiverse. I've designed it to fit this brand of solar lights. It will probably fit other brands, but it can be a little bit looser, a little bit tight, depending on which model you get. If it doesn't quite fit the model you've bought, then you can scale it up or down like 1% in your slicer, and then it should be fine. So this just slides on like that. And what this does is it gives us a place to attach some wire for hanging our ornament. I happen to like this stainless steel wire from Harbor Freight, but you don't have to use this. You can use any kind of wire you want. You can use string. It doesn't really matter, just so that you have something to hang your ornament by. And so the wire should fit right through these holes like that, and then give it a bend so that it stays, and then loop it around and put it through the other hole, and then give that a bend, and then kind of just bend it to pretty it up a little bit. And there you go. The ornament is done. You can hang it wherever you want. Make sure it gets some sun. Since it's solar powered, it's going to need sun for at least a few hours if you want it to stay on in the evening. Don't put it under a really shady tree. You'll keep it inside where it doesn't get any sun. So that's it. That's the most basic way to build one of these. You can put any color of LED. You could put red, you can put blue, you can put green, you can put yellow. It doesn't matter. Now, if you're not super excited about single color LEDs, we can put a color changing LED in here. We just have to modify things a little bit more. So we're going to repeat the same steps that we did last time. We're going to take the light apart, take the battery out, take the board off. So to make this work with an RGB LED, we're going to have to add two components. We have to add a diode, and we have to add a capacitor. And the reason for that is that the XY8018 chip is acting like a boost converter, and it's not giving the LED a clean signal. It's actually pulsing it on and off at about 200 kilohertz. And that's not something you can see with your eye, and it's not something that really matters to single color LEDs because they just flicker on and off really fast. But these RGB LEDs have a chip built in, a tiny chip that automatically changes their color. And that 200 kilohertz noise is a problem for the RGB LEDs because it resets the chip over and over and over and over again. And so it's never able to cycle out of red. It'll always stay on red if you just solder this straight in place of the white one. We have to add the diode and the capacitor to rectify the current and smooth it. We're going to solder the diode in first. Get my helping hands over here to help my hands. So you can solder their leads together just like this. And then we're going to add the capacitor. And the capacitor goes in parallel with your RGB LED. And if we've done this correctly, it should come on when we replace the battery. So let's see if we have. And there we go. It's changing colors. One last thing you can do with these, if you don't like this spot that you get where the LED focuses all of its light, is to take a Dremel tool or a file or some sandpaper or whatever you want and grind down this shiny round tip on the LED that acts as a lens. Now some of these lights come with a metal bezel that's fit around them. So you take that off, you can set that aside, and then this 3D printed bezel will fit on, just like that. And that's all there is to it. Hang up your solar ornaments anywhere you want and enjoy your evenings.